Hello, everyone. I'm Lady.
And I'm Alana.
And this is Spookery. Oh my god, who is that? Who is that?
Oh my gosh, new microphone. Who dis?
No, my god, she has a new microphone. She just sounds so crisp.
So crisp.
Guys, listen to that sound quality. Alana, please give us a demo of your brand new microphone.
Gosh, I'm like scared people aren't gonna actually like my voice now that they can truly hear it. Now that the microphone isn't like blocking it, making it sound a little bit more grainy and a little bit better. What if it's annoying?
No, I mean, I would not have started a podcast with you if I thought your voice was annoying. So let's.
Fair enough.
Alana's got a brand new microphone. She's coming in hot and heavy. She's unstoppable. Her quality has increased exponentially. Like, we can't stop her. She's too powerful now. Everybody run for your lives.
Ma'am, it's truly, it's all thanks to Lady. Sponsored by Lady. She's the best. Thank you,
This episode has been sponsored by myself. Microphones. Just get a new one.
It's so true. I am very excited to listen to this episode compared to the other episodes, and I wish I could go back and re-record them all with this new microphone because I have a feeling it's going to be quite the improvement.
I know. I kind of like that our entire Spookery right now is like it's a monument to our growth, where we both started off with like subpar microphones, and now look at us. We have better microphones. We have better quality. I've gotten better at editing. My sound library has expanded. I'm learning tricks and I'm learning trades, and I'm slowly starting to bribe people to edit my episodes for me. It's great. Life is good.
That's real growth right there. Bribing people to edit your episodes for you.
Some people just call that a job.
Not here, not at Spookery.
No, here it's a bribe. Welcome back, everybody, to the Titanic. It's part 4. It's part 4 of the Titanic.
The bummer episode.
It's the bummer episode. Welcome, everyone, to the bummer episode of the Titanic. It's the story that just keeps on going. It's the story that keeps on giving. We have talked about a lot of pre-context. We are finally at the context.
The meat and potatoes of the context portion.
We're actually at the Titanic, and the part that we cared about, or I don't know, maybe you really liked about hearing about what was on the Titanic. If you did, thank you for listening to part 3.
Yeah.
If you haven't listened to parts 1 through 3, it's okay. It's not the end of the world, but like...
Highly encouraged to.
I would recommend going back and giving them a listen. They're the pre-context of the context, and they're going to... Guys, reminder, this is a conspiracy theory episode, so I know we haven't gotten there yet, but there will be a conspiracy theory at the end of this saga. So if you want to kind of help find your red strings and start connecting the dots, I highly recommend going back and listening to 1 through 3.
Yes.
They are prevalent. And I wouldn't have spoken about them if they weren't.
Yes.
For those who are returning after 3 very arduous 2-hour Titanic episodes, welcome back.
Yes.
We've covered pretty much the very abridged history of the White Star Line, all of their tragedies that they've had before the Titanic. Last episode, we covered what the Titanic was made of. Spoiler alert, it's metal. We talked about how she was built, some of her issues that she had while she was being built. We talked about her crew. We talked about some of the people on board, some of the very luxurious people on board. And then we talked about the very beginning of her maiden voyage, where she went from Southampton to Cherbourg all the way to Queenstown, Ireland. And now we have just begun setting sail into the North Atlantic. And that's where we left off.
Yeah, with this giant inverted bathtub.
It's a giant inverted bathtub. I love bathtubs. I just love them.
I'm suspicious of anyone who doesn't love a good bathtub. But, I'm suspicious of this bathtub.
I think you should be suspicious of this bathtub, because I think if you don't know what happens to the Titanic, you're in for a doozy this episode.
Yeah, this bathtub's grandparents, had some times.
Yeah. This bathtub has a family curse, shall we say. Not to spoil my conspiracy theories or anything, but there might be a trend of these kind of bathtubs not doing so well. So let's talk about the biggest one, the grandest bathtub of them all, the Titanic.
Yes, let's.
So, the Titanic has just set into the North Atlantic. She now has to cover 2,825 miles, or 4,546 kilometers, across the Atlantic to make it to New York, her final destination. Now, remember, last episode we talked about the Titanic. She was built to be large and luxurious. She was not built for speed. That was not what the White Star Line did. They were not built for speed. That's the Lusitania. That's all her department. We don't do that. We don't do it over here. That's not the White Star Line way. So the Lusitania could cover this distance in about 116 hours, or just under 5 days. Titanic's ETA was 137 hours, or just under 6 days. So that's about a 20-hour difference.
Yeah.
So she was actually scheduled to arrive at Pier 59 in New York on the morning of April 17th.
Wow.
So this is one of my myths I get to bust, because I love busting myths about this thing. That's what this episode is for. There is a lingering myth about the Titanic that our boy, Captain Smith, was actually trying to break a time record and really show the Lusitania what for. She was like, those Cunard bastards, they've had it too good for too long. They think they're the fastest ship on the ocean. No, that's what the Titanic's all about. Wrong. Titanic not built for speed. Remember this. None of the White Star Line ships after the Big Four were built for speed. Not a thing. And it's true to this day. They're not built for speed. This is a prevalent myth. I mean, I think I was talking to my dad the other day. He was like, oh, isn't that true that they were trying to break a speed record and that's why they were just being reckless in the North Atlantic? And I'm like, no, they are not, because there's no point.
Yeah.
But that said, they were going at full speed the whole time. So they weren't trying to break a speed record, but they were going fast.
I mean, speed is still important. Even if you're not the fastest, speed is still important. Okay?
Yes, you gotta be punctual. If you've estimated you're gonna arrive on the 17th, but that's estimated that you're going the full speed the entire time, I'm gonna go full speed the entire time.
Gonna go full speed. Yeah, you can't be that much slower than the other guys. Like,
no,
come on.
I mean, 20-hour difference is still a difference, and we may not be built for speed, but we still gotta be competition.
Exactly, like you said, we can't have people arriving super late. Like, it's the one thing.
We have the richest man on board. We can't have him be late.
Oh gosh, God. I'm so nervous. I was wiping a bead of sweat from my forehead as you say that.
I can't get too crazy too early.
Yes.
We're only just starting.
I know, we're 6 minutes in.
We're 6 minutes in. So she's beginning her journey into the Atlantic. So from April 11th to April 12th, noon to noon, the Titanic covered 557 miles, or 896 kilometers. Next day, she covered about 597 miles, or 961 kilometers. And from the 13th to the 14th, she covered another 626 miles, or 1,011 kilometers. So she's making pace. And so even though she's going top speed the whole time, she is actually saving time. So for the remainder of her journey to her final destination, she would only need to make another 291 miles, or 478 kilometers. And she was averaging at her top speed of 21 knots, or 24 miles per hour, or 39 kilometers an hour. I got the speed out of the way.
She's moving fast, but not that fast.
She's moving fast, and she's picking up speed, but she's not going that fast. So, unlike the Titanic's several predecessors, the weather was really good. On her first leg, leaving Ireland, the weather had been cloudy, but fair. The weather was spectacular for all of her days out at sea until the 13th, when she hit a cold front. So when the cold front hit, the winds got very, very strong, and the waves were very, very high. It was speculated that the waves were as high as 8 foot, or 2.4 meters. And then going into the 14th, everything was fine again. There was no wind, the seas were calm, the skies were clear, and it was just very, very, very cold.
Okay.
The temperature of the water was -2 degrees Celsius that night, or 28 degrees Fahrenheit.
Dang.
For the most part, these 3 days out at sea went without incident. For the most part. So during those 3 days, and it didn't specify when, I believe it was either the first or the second day, the Titanic's Marconi wireless system actually broke down, which means, for the most part, Titanic has no way to communicate with neighboring ships. So she's just out in the North Atlantic on her own.
But it's fine, right? Because even if they did break down, which they're not going to, other ships are going to see them because it's happened before, and that's what's going to happen. That's the plan, okay? Don't be silly.
Yes, and the Titanic's a huge ship. You can't miss her.
Literally.
Yes.
Literally.
So for at least one of these days, the Titanic has no Marconi wireless system. At the time, the Marconi manual specifically says, do not attempt sea repair. Await repair by certified Marconi technician when you get to your final destination.
Oh no. Oh no.
Now, this was a slight problem because we had some very influential passengers on board, and they were trying to send personal messages to people in New York and all around the North America, basically being like, look how rich I am, and I'm heading to New York on an inaugural passenger ship. Like, man, look at all of this cool stuff I have. And they can't because the Marconi system is down.
Oh my gosh. They're like, you've heard that song, like, I'm on a boat, right? They're trying to send that link to their friends, and they're like, I'm on a boat, and I can't tell my friends about it. It doesn't matter if I can't tell the world. Who cares if I'm on a boat?
Ocean lining, it was meant to be seen, and what was the point if you weren't being able to, or at least in this case, you couldn't be heard?
Literally.
And we also maybe need that system for like an emergency, but like, not really.
No. I want to be able to call my best friend and be like, hey, guess where I am right now? On a boat.
We're on a boat.
They'll be like, how are you calling me? Because we have the Marconi system.
We have the finest in Marconi technology. I'm telling you now that I am on a boat, and we do not need this for an emergency. I need this for my personal messages.
Oh my gosh. I could see that.
So one of our wireless operators on board is a guy named Jack Phillips, and he was like, oh, hell no. No, I have to get these very influential messages out. So he's like, I'ma fix this thing. I know what I'm doing. I can fix this thing. And he fucking does.
Oh.
He literally cracks the Marconi system open, and he's just like, yeah, I know how to fix this. And he literally just rewires it a little bit, like shakes the box around a little bit, like smacks the top. Thing starts working again, all on his own.
Oh my gosh. Does a little, what's his name? The guy that hits the jukebox and is just like, yeah, like elbows it and it just starts playing again. What's that guy's name?
I don't know, but I know exactly who you're talking about. Yeah, he basically just smacked the top of this box and it started working. One problem though, he fixes this on his off shift. So, when he's supposed to be sleeping.
Oh.
So there are 2 Marconi operators on board, and the other one's like, the manual says we don't fix it. We just, easy day. Don't have to worry about it for the entire cruise. And Jack Phillips is like, nah, I'm gonna fix this thing. But when I'm supposed to be sleeping.
Well.
Yeah. So by morning, system is fixed, and basically all these influential passengers are like, great, I can send all my messages. Except now we have a 2-day stockpile of very influential passengers trying to send messages out. And the pile just keeps getting larger and larger because they're not going to tell people that their Marconi system is down. So they just keep sending like these personalized telegrams being like, can you send this out? Just like, can you call someone in Canada real quick and just tell them I'm on a boat?
I'm like cringing in my seat. I'm like in physical pain and just like, I can see where this is going. And this guy that's sleep deprived fixes the thing. Woohoo, great. We can send all of our useless messages now. What could possibly go wrong?
Don't read ahead. don't read ahead.
I'm not. I'm asking. I'm literally asking. Tell me. What could possibly go wrong? Because I don't see any problems with this.
You don't see any problems with this?
This is totally fine. That's what I'd be doing. Sending messages.
Yes. So Phillips and our other operator, a guy named Bride, spend pretty much every waking second now just sending these messages out because they have a 2-day stockpile of these private and affluent messages. So by the 3rd day at sea, you can probably estimate that the 2 of them are very, very, very tired. Additionally, on top of all this, 10 days before the Titanic even started her maiden voyage, a fire broke out inside her coal bunker.
Oh no.
Fires in coal bunkers aren't too uncommon. They do happen. Coal is flammable. That's kind of how these big steamships work. You set fire to coal, you put it in the burner, it heats up a bunch of water, it makes steam, ship go forward.
Yeah.
Fires like this broke out all the time. It really didn't affect the voyage. So stokers, what they would do when these sort of fires happen is they would simply grab the burning coal, put it in the boiler. No coal wasted. It's burning anyway. We might as well just turn it into useful fuel.
Yeah.
So the fire was still burning until the 14th of April, when it was eventually extinguished, but that's, 3 days out at sea where this fire is just burning in the hull.
Yeah.
It's speculated that shoveling it into the boiler wasn't actually helping with the problem, and the fire was actually quelled with hoses, but I'm not sure on that. That was a couple of different conflicting reports on my in the records that I found.
Okay. Gosh, that's still so scary, though.
Yeah. April 14th. 3 days after leaving Queenstown, and 4 days into her maiden voyage, about 9 in the morning. The Titanic received her first ice warning from the RMS Caronia, which was a Cunard ship. Cunard! So they were like, hey guys, watch out, there be ice. And the Titanic was like, can't talk, I'm sending these messages out. All these affluent messages.
Can't talk on a boat.
Can't talk, telling people we're on a boat. So this was actually the first of 6 ice warnings that the Titanic would receive before the collision.
I hate that.
The Coronia reported that there were icebergs and an ice field ahead. The Titanic was like, I can't talk. We're on a boat.
On a boat.
11 a.m. Titanic was scheduled for her very first lifeboat drill since embarking on her journey. However, Captain Edward Smith decided to cancel. He was like, we're making good headway. And to do this lifeboat drill, we'd have to like slow down.
Yeah.
And yeah. So the reason for the cancellation was actually never given, but it is speculated that it might have been because they were just trying to keep like a tighter schedule, and like to do a lifeboat drill, you'd have to slow down, especially if you're dropping lifeboats.
Yeah, and like they already are like going at a slower pace, you know, because they're sacrificing speed for the luxury and the size and all that other good stuff. And so they're like, well, we can't sacrifice it for safety. We're willing to sacrifice for luxury, but for safety,
So back in my day, when I was on a boat and I was telling people that I was on a boat, the biggest complaint that I ever got were our lifeboat drills. Weirdly enough, we had a lot of these passengers, and we did our lifeboat drills at the very beginning. So that was even before we left harbor. We did our lifeboat drills, and they were mandatory. So it was like, you get on the boat, you wait an hour until everyone's on board, you do the lifeboat drill, and then the cruise starts. Then we leave.
I think that's the good way to do it, honestly.
It's very good. And I was a safety leader, so I would lead my section of these things, and people would bitch at me every single time because they were like, this is so inconvenient. You're ruining our vacation. We're just trying to have fun. And I'm like, we might die out there. And in an emergency, you got to listen to me. Put on your life jacket. We're going to our lifeboat thing so you know where your lifeboat is, so that in the case of a Titanic, we know what we're doing. Man. But it was like every single cruise. And I would do, you know, cruise after cruise after cruise. I would probably do like at least 40 cruises per contract. And every single time it was the same. There was always this, like a handful of people who were just like, that was so inconvenient and that was the worst thing ever. There were people who would skip these lifeboat drills, and then they would have to do another mandatory one the next day. Because like we actually had like paperwork with everyone's names on it, like say who was there and who wasn't.
Yeah.
And if you didn't show up to your lifeboat drill, you had to do a private one with the captain like supervising you. Like these were things were big deals, but like get them out the way quickly. Know where your lifeboat is. Just pay attention because like unfortunately accidents do happen. Ships still hit icebergs. Spoiler alert, ships are still hitting icebergs out there. Know where your safety station is. Know where your lifeboat is. Everything is so much safer now, but like, God, do your lifeboat drills. Anyway.
Literally, like, I'm just so shocked that that's like, it's for your safety. Like, I don't know, like, gosh, man, I don't know. It just speaks to how good we have it and how we don't think that there's really risks associated with these things. We're dummies. We're human.
Yeah, we are.
We don't understand that we're mortal.
Yeah, and I get it. Like we as human beings hate to be inconvenienced, but like if this inconvenience is to literally save your life, I think we can sacrifice an hour and do a quick lifeboat drill. Anyway, rant over. The Titanic didn't do their lifeboat drills, other than the one that they did in Southampton, and that barely counted because they were like, "Look, our boat goes round. Back up it goes."
Back up it goes.
All right, so. Several more reports were filed throughout the day about ice warnings. At about noon, one came in from the Baltic, one of our very own, our sister ship. She reported there were icebergs sighted and there was field ice. Titanic was like, can't talk, sending out messages. Right after, the Mesaba reported 2 icebergs spotted and a field of ice. Titanic's like, can't talk, sending out messages. Then the America reported that there were 2 icebergs sighted. No, can't do it. Gotta send these messages. Really tired. Gotta. Really important.
I just like imagine like other boats like going through this like dark, like really like icy like passage, like taking their time, being really like careful with it, and then like behind them is like the Titanic with like disco lights and like, you know what I mean, like just like, and they're just like, woo, and people are just like, hey, there's icebergs, and they're just like, woo, we don't care, we're on a boat, like it's just like...
Don't read ahead. I mean, the Titanic kind of was a party boat compared to all these other ships. Like the amenities that they had were like outstanding. They were so ahead of their time. Yeah, but also like they were trying to get these messages out. They have very affluent people on board. They're just like, we need to tell Canada that we're here. And keep in mind as well, all of these ice warnings are coming in during the day. So like sighting icebergs is very easy. Titanic can see ice. They can see things because it's daytime. So just keep that in mind. We're during the day.
You can see things if you're out there looking for them, if you're not partying.
Yes, during the day.
During the day.
During the day. I want to emphasize that you can see things when you're not partying during the day.
During the day. But yeah, big if.
Yes, big if. So the Nordam simply reported that there was a lot of ice out, guys. We should be careful. A lot of ice. Titanic's like, woo, we're on a boat. What did you say? Can't hear you. We're telling people we're on a boat. And finally, the Californian was the final ship to be in contact with the Titanic, reported 3 icebergs spotted. We're on a boat. More on that later. So, at about 5:50 p.m., the Titanic changes its direction from south to west. So at this point, they've been exclusively going south, kind of southwestish, because, that's the normal trajectory. To go from Ireland to New York, got to go south, then you go west.
Yeah.
Now, they'd actually scheduled to do this 20 minutes earlier at 5:30, but Captain Smith actually called the delay to avoid ice regions. So he was kind of paying attention. He's getting the messages from these very tired Marconi operators going, something about ice, and he was like, ice. We keep going south a little bit, then we go west. So this maneuver would have taken the Titanic into a famously ice-free part of the Gulf Stream, which on any other year would have been a fantastic idea.
But
unfortunately, 1912 was a weird year.
Oh no.
It was unusually colder in 1912. And so ice was sailing much further south. So normally ice would stay kind of northish. The more south it got, it would melt. It would become part of the Gulf Stream. Wouldn't be a problem. But in 1912, it was getting a lot colder down south. Something about climate change or something.
Yeah.
So there was ice further south. So ordinarily, this would have been the move. It would have been fantastic to keep going south for 20 more minutes. This year, if they had made the turn at their scheduled time, well, it might have put them in a little bit of a better position.
Oh no.
Yes. So Titanic maintained its top speed, which was common practice at the time. Once again, not going for a speed record. We're not about the speed. We're just about being punctual. And you could not arrive late, not with all the celebrities, not with all the partiers, not with all the goings-on and the happenings. We have the wealthiest man on board. We have the second wealthiest man on board. We probably have the third wealthiest man on board. Or we don't. We don't know. But we have a lot of very affluent people. We have royalty on board. We have politicians. We have ministers. We have people from every walk of life. And they need to get to New York on time because they have transportation scheduled. They have busy schedules. They have things that they have got to do.
Yeah.
Arriving early, which is nice, but it's inconvenient because your transportation isn't scheduled to arrive early. Arriving late, that's just a disaster for everyone.
Yeah.
At the time as well, ice warnings were kind of just that. They were warnings. So it was just like a, hey, just so you know, there's ice about, just be careful. But that didn't really mean much back then. Lookouts did all of the heavy lifting here, as well as the bridge kind of to scan the horizon. But ice warning just meant, hey, we have seen ice, just keep an eye out. And then the lookouts would be the actual ones to find ice.
Gotcha, okay.
So it was also common belief that ships were way over-engineered these days. Ice posed little to no threat to ocean liners because of how well built they were, which is kind of true, but kind of not. The common belief is that ocean liners really, really tough. Look at the Olympic. She danced with a ship designed to sink ships. And she won. So people were looking at that here's a ship specifically engineered to puncture hulls and drag these boats down below the water. Olympic was like, what boat? I mean, she also had the Olympic issues for a week. She was a tough talker, but she did way better than any other ship before her. Titanic was over-engineered beyond the Olympic. So if the Olympic could handle something like that, there was no issue with the Titanic.
That's true.
Captain Smith had said in an earlier interview before the maiden voyage, he could not imagine any condition which would cause a ship to founder. Modern shipbuilding had gone way beyond that. Titanic sailed through April 14th into the evening. Now we're getting dark.
Yeah.
When I tell you visibility was poor, conditions were described as moonless, clear, and flat calm. It was blackout. You couldn't see shit.
Gosh.
So there was no moonlight. There were no lights on the horizon. You couldn't see other ships. The ocean was flat, so you couldn't even see waves breaking. Everything was just sort of a black void, and you were just sailing through it.
Gosh. That's serene and calm and beautiful, but also just the ocean is so scary, so it's also terrifying.
And think about like just the time period we're in. We're in 1912. If you think of a modern cruise ship, like the decks are lit up. Like even when like the ship isn't active, you've kind of got just some like nighttime lighting. You can see, you've got spotlights. People's portholes are emitting light. There's a lot of light on modern cruise ships. We're in 1912 right now. Lighting is not spectacular. It doesn't go very far. The portals can open, but at this point as well, people are starting to go to bed. They're putting the lights out. Like there's nothing to do at nighttime except for sleep and maybe, go to the gym. But yeah, it's dark out. You have not got light other than what's on board. And you haven't got these party decks. You haven't got these pool lights. You haven't got, disco lights going on. Not anymore.
Those go off at 7.
Yeah. Hard cutoff. We've got a curfew here, baby. So couldn't see shit.
Yeah.
The exhibition that I went to, they actually had a replica of what you could see from the bridge. So they had like a replica of the bridge with like the view that you could see that night. It's just black. Just black. There's nothing.
That's so scary.
Yes. So 2 lookouts were posted in the Crow's Nest around 10 p.m. Their names were Frederick Fleet and Reginald Lee. And my heart really goes out to these 2 because this was the hardest job in the world.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Looking into a black void, like you said, looking for things, like that's just, oh my gosh, that's tough.
Yeah, and you're on the off shift too, so you're tired. It's nighttime. It's fucking cold out there. This is like uncomfortably cold and unusually cold for April. So they probably packed for like a standard year, like, oh yeah, okay. Last year it was, it was kind of chilly, but like we just need a light jacket. Now we're like below freezing, and it's bad out.
Yeah.
So at 11 p.m., the final ice warning from the Californian comes in. We kind of talked about it before. They were too busy sending messages. Her message actually said that, hey, we're stopped for the night. It's cold out. We've seen some ice, so we're just going to like hold completely. We're just going to stop. So, just let you know, there's some ice about. Be careful. Now, Jack Phillips was the one that was on the Marconi at this time of night. He's exhausted. He hasn't been sleeping. He's been sending messages. He's been like, hey, guys, we're on a boat. He's still shifting through this pile of private messages because it keeps piling up. These affluent people are realizing the messages are going out. We're just going to keep sending messages. They're texting out and Sandra being like, hey, you're never going to guess what I had for lunch. He's also sending messages. I believe he was sending them to Canada. So he had his wireless system cranked all the way up to 11 at this time because the radio signal was faint. Okay. He's got the Marconi turned way up. He's exhausted. He's tired. He's sending these messages. And then the Californian's like, hey, guys, we're stopping for the night. Watch out. There's ice about. And Jack Phillips immediately responds, shut up, I'm busy. That's a quote.
Oh.
He literally responds, shut up, I'm busy, and dismisses the warning.
Those are important messages, okay? Like you said, if he doesn't get out what Martha had for lunch, like if we don't know that she had salmon, like with the freaking Parmesan falafel stroganoff, like it's gonna be a fucking disaster.
It is. Now, before we get mad at Phillips for completely dismissing the Californian's message, I do want to have a little bit of like subcontext here. Most Marconi operators did in fact know each other. They were all like part of like the geek Marconi operator club. So they all kind of knew each other. They also were sending a lot of abbreviated and kind of spicy messages to each other all the time because they were the only ones who could read them.
That's fair.
So they were often a little bit more provocative. They were a lot of swearing. They were a little bit vulgar. So they would send these abbreviated vulgar messages to each other. They would often greet each other as old man. They're like, hey, old man, like, what up? Like, yeah. just saying hi. So the Californian's message was probably very of that, like, sup, dude, just letting you know, we're stopping for the night. And so the message that Jack Phillips probably said was probably QRL, which was abbreviated for shut the fuck up, and GTH, which was go to hell. So they were sending each other these messages, but they were probably from a more friendly place. More like if like you and I are texting each other and I'm in the middle of something important, or you're in the middle of something important, and I message you just like, hey, what's up? Like, I'm just, I'm eating salmon for lunch. And if you're just like, actually, I can't talk right now, I'm like in the middle of something really important, I'd be like, gotcha, see you later. It's one of those, rather than it was the California bear, what up, old bean? We've got some ice up ahead. And then the Titanic just going, fuck you. It's not that. It was probably more of like a, gosh, shut up right now, I'm a little bit busy. Like, catch you on the flip side, my guy. It was one of those.
That's so funny. Oh my gosh. I love that they had an abbreviation literally for shut the fuck up.
QRL. So if you want to tell someone to shut the fuck up, just tell them QRL.
God, I love that humans have so many different ways to tell each other to shut up.
And you know what? Humans in 2024 and humans in 1912, we're not so different.
We're not so different after all.
We're not so different. We're not so different. We still tell each other to shut the fuck up.
Me too. And I think that's beautiful.
That's poetry right there. Also, at 11 p.m., same time the Californians same time as the Californians' message came through, the Iceberg was 15 miles ahead of the Titanic. The lookouts cannot see it.
Okay.
At 11:30, the Iceberg is only 4 miles ahead. The lookouts cannot see it. At 11:39, the night is quiet and still. You cannot see anything. The lookouts still cannot see the iceberg. 30 seconds later, the iceberg was spotted directly ahead of the Titanic. Far too late.
Oh my gosh.
When I say this thing came out of nowhere, I mean it. This iceberg literally emerged out of the darkness and directly into the Titanic's path. Lookout Fleet spots it and immediately calls the bridge. Iceberg, right ahead.
Jesus.
The Titanic immediately took evasive action. First Officer William Murdoch ordered the ship to be steered hard port, to the left, and reversed the engines to slow the ship to a halt. The order was taken, but it was far too late to have any lasting impact. April 14th, 1912, 11:40 p.m., 20 minutes before midnight, the Titanic collided with the iceberg.
Jesus.
She hit the iceberg 30 seconds after the iceberg was spotted.
That's just that, like you said, the timing of that. Like, I know we're sitting here and even it's taking us more than 30 seconds to even discuss that because of how quickly that just like truly happens. Like that, that just,
it's,
oh my God.
Yeah, it was over before it begun. It was literally just bam, bam. It just happened so quickly. At the time of collision, the Titanic was traveling at the speed of 20.5 knots. So not quite top speed, but pretty dang close to it. The iceberg collided with her starboard right side, which generated a series of holes along the Titanic just below the waterline. And if you know anything about boats, anything below the waterline is bad news. So here's actually another myth that I can quickly bust. It's common belief that the iceberg scratched a long gash down the side of the Titanic.
Okay.
The iceberg did not. There was no cutting, there was no slicing, there was no ripping apart. The hull wasn't even punctured, but rather the Titanic was just severely dented.
Really?
Yes, so when she hit the iceberg along her right side, smacked into it, it simply popped the hull in. It didn't rip it open, it just dented it inwards.
Okay.
So the structural integrity of the ship buckled, and the steel plates simply separated, which allowed the water to rush in.
Interesting.
So the Titanic, the iceberg did no ripping, no shredding, no slicing. It simply dented and popped it out of place, which unfortunately was just as bad.
Wow. Yeah, that's very different than I think like the depiction most people have in their heads of how it went down.
Yeah, and I 100%, when I started the story, I 100% believed that there was just like a really sharp ice jaggedy bit that cut into the side of the hull. And kind of thinking about it now, it's like, you know, what are the chances that something made of ice can pierce like super strong steel?
Yeah.
The math's not really checking out in my head now that I know that it was a dent, and it was simply just because it hit the mass, it just popped the hull in. It's like, think of like when you're pressing like bubble wrap.
Yeah.
Like the force is enough to pop it in, and that was what caused the damage. So the damage was across 5 of the Titanic's 16 watertight compartments. The 6th compartment was also compromised, but this was one of the coal bunkers, and they actually managed to keep the water mostly on one side before the flooding really kicked in. So the initial 5 were the big damage dealers. Mm-hmm. Titanic really had no chance here. Not that the people on board realized it right away, because it was actually from surviving accounts, people describing the feeling of the collision, they didn't actually believe that they'd hit anything.
Okay.
So, by the way that the Olympic class was designed, they could stay afloat if 4 watertight compartments flooded. Titanic had 5.5 that were punctured. Water was rushing in very slowly, but very surely.
Yeah.
And the front of the Titanic actually began dipping into the ocean.
Okay.
Because all of the damage was along the front side.
Oh.
People on board barely felt the impact. Most of the passengers and crew slept right through it. It was like a very inconsequential earthquake. It was like a 0.2 on the Richter scale.
Yeah.
Lookout Fleet, who was the one that spotted the iceberg, didn't feel the collision and actually assumed the Titanic had successfully dodged the blow.
That's terrible. Oh, no.
That's how little the Titanic rocked with this collision. And another reason why it couldn't really have been a gash, like if you can imagine something piercing the hull of the Titanic, you're going to imagine like cracking and screeching. There wasn't anything. It just popped it out of place. So, 20 minutes after the collision, Captain Smith became aware that something was wrong. Titanic was starting to tilt forward, and while they weren't alarmed, perchance, they decided to start sending out a broadcast to all nearby ships. So the Californian was the closest ship by far, and that's also, unfortunately, the ship that lovely Mr. Jack Phillips said, shut up, I'm busy to.
Oh, no.
The Californian was only 20 miles away. But after receiving the yeah thanks, no thanks message from Jack Phillips, they had actually gone to sleep. So the Marconi station was not manned. They were like, hey, we're stopping for the night. We're not moving. We're turning off our radios. Good night, everybody. We'll see you in the morning. And so while the Titanic was like, hey, I think I might have hit one of those icebergs you were telling me about, there was nobody there to receive the message.
That's just terrible. Oh, God.
Yes. And this was also, once again, this was common practice. It was not usual for someone to operate a Marconi system overnight. Jack Phillips was just a hell of a worker, and he was just like, sleep's for the weak. I am not a weak man. I must send these messages out.
Oh, gosh. Man.
The real kicker is if someone had stayed on the radio on the Californian overnight, as is now common practice, the Californian absolutely could have reached the Titanic before she sank.
God, that's so tragic. Like you said, just terrible. And you said it, I think, in episode 1. You know, most like laws, rules, whatever, are written in blood, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. And so it's we have these laws in place now, these rules in place now because of these tragic events, man.
Yeah, 100%. A lot of really good legislature, unfortunately, was written in the blood of the Titanic. So at around 12:15 a.m., April 15th, the Titanic sent out her proper first wireless distress call. Titanic, of course, was fitted with the state-of-the-art Marconi radio transmitter and 2 Marconi certified radio technicians, Jack Phillip and Harold Bride. She started out with a very simple CQD, as we talked about in the last episode. Basically means all stations, distress, help. I've gotten myself in a spot of bother. Can somebody please help me out?
Yeah.
So what they were sending out was CQD followed by the Titanic's call letters, which was MGY. So CQD, MGY, and then some coordinates of like, hey, it's me, the Titanic. I'm in some distress. I'm over here. Come help me. Now remember as well, the common belief at the time is that ocean liners were the real lifeboats. Lifeboats weren't lifeboats. Ocean liners themselves were the lifeboats of the ocean. There were plenty of them out in the Atlantic. It should not take long for another ship to hear a distress signal, respond, and get to you in time to help with the distress. The Frankfurt's the first one to respond from hundreds of miles away, which is not encouraging.
Yeah.
They're a little bit far to do anything. The Baltic, the Mount Temple, the Burma, and the Yprenga, I think is how you say it, all responded, but with very little urgency. They were all like, oh, Titanic, did you get yourself in some trouble? Okay, we'll come check on you in a little bit. Hang tight. We'll, when we get there, we'll get there.
Love that.
Yes.
That's the response you want.
That's it, yeah, when you're like, I think I'm in trouble, and someone's like, are you in trouble? Oh, you goober. Okay, we'll come check on you in a little bit. Hang tight.
God.
But also I don't think the Titanic knew how much danger they were in at this time either. I think they were sending the distress signal, but they were like, I'm in trouble, but I think I'll be okay.
Yeah. Like you said, if even the lookout thought that they dodged it and were fine, I just don't know that their urgent messages were that urgent. They're like, yeah, it's pretty bad, but not that bad. That's fine.
Yeah. So the ship is listing very slowly, but very surely. And the radio operators really need a way to stress how dire things are starting to get.
Yeah.
So Harold Bride actually suggests, hey, send SOS. It's the brand new call, and this may be your last chance to use it. So they start using the brand new Morse code approved distress signal SOS into the mix. This is the first ever instance of SOS being used by a passenger liner.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So the Titanic began sending out alternating distress codes, CQD, MGY, SOS, CQD, followed by her coordinates, and a message that simply said, sinking.
Jeez.
At 12:20 a.m., Captain Smith gives the first orders to start loading the lifeboats. This very quickly went from a, that's an issue, to, fuck, that's an issue. Now, I'm sure you're shocked to hear people on board were not prepared for the event of an emergency.
Yeah, they're like, what do we do? And they're like, if only we had done the drills.
Yeah, they were like, we didn't do the lifeboat drill. We're on the world's best lifeboat already. Lifeboats, the little ones, aren't really considered a life-saving device. They were more considered tenders to ferry people to other ships, which were the real lifeboats. And, whoa, there's not really another ship to pick up our lifeboats. The Titanic, also as a reminder, only had 20 of her 64 lifeboats on board. If she had been at full capacity, if she had been at full capacity of passengers, so all 3,339 people, she would only have enough lifeboats to carry at maximum 30% of the passengers. So only 30% of all people would have been saved.
That is not good.
There was also a strong resistance to loading the lifeboats when the order first came out. There was actually an eyewitness on board that and he even said there were a couple of reasons why people were reluctant. First one was people didn't really believe that the Titanic was going to sink. At this point in time, the listing was actually it wasn't so bad. So the head was tilting a little bit into the water, but it wasn't super noticeable. It was just you were a slight tripping hazard. The other reason was from a lifeboat. It was a 70-foot drop into the water from the lifeboat.
Oh, yeah, that doesn't sound fun. Like you said, there's no seatbelt, there's no strap. You're just on this boat free falling into the water on a freaking...
Well, you're being lowered down on ropes. You're not just going...
Oh, I imagine they just drop you. It's like the freaking Tower of Terror, man. They're just like, bye. I'm like, that sounds terrible. Yeah, I can understand. I'd be very apprehensive. I'd be like, no thanks, I'll just stay on the boat till we get into the water.
I'm happy to report it's not as bad as the Tower of Terror. You're not dropping 70 feet, just a straight dive. No, you were being lowered on ropes, so you were actually out on a pulley system. So you'd load the boat, it would get pushed over the side, and then you would drop into the water. But still, that's man-powered of someone pulling just ropes. It's not automated. It's not a crank.
Yeah.
It's manpower, and you're being dropped 70 foot, possibly unequally because you've got pulleys on either side.
Yeah.
People are looking at that going, that doesn't feel safe. Titanic feels a lot safer. I'm going to stay on the Titanic.
Yeah, I think I'd be one of those people. And even just from my misunderstanding, I think I'd be one of those people.
Yes, so there was a lot of resistance to the passengers getting into the lifeboats. The crew were also not properly trained for an event like this. Surprise, surprise, we didn't do the lifeboat drill. Problematic.
Yeah.
The crew also had no idea how many people could be loaded into a lifeboat safely without it capsizing. So if you overloaded a lifeboat, that's just another possibly 100 people that are getting thrown into the water for no reason.
Yeah.
So it was a delicate balance of how many people can we load without putting all of the people on that lifeboat in danger.
Yeah, and not wasting lifeboats, like you said. That's... Okay.
So as such, the first couple of lifeboats that were loaded were severely underfilled. So all lifeboats on board, not including the collapsible ones, so 16 of these lifeboats could hold 65 people. The first lifeboat launched only had 28 people on board.
Why did I knew I was going to be like 20? Yeah, that's wild. Holy shit.
So the average load for all of the lifeboats was actually only about 60%. So this is commonly attributed to the lack of urgency at the beginning, when people were like, don't really want to go on the 70-foot drop, and also we're not really in any danger, someone's going to come get us, it's going to be fine. Panic had not set in yet, and the list forward wasn't too bad. People were walking to the lifeboats rather than desperately clawing to get in. It was like an ample Sunday stroll. We'll make it to the lifeboat with plenty of time. We're not really going down.
Jeez.
So, first lifeboat launched was Lifeboat 7, and that was launched at about 12:45 a.m. She was a starboard lifeboat and was launched with 28 people on board. She was followed by Lifeboat 5, which was also a starboard lifeboat, and she had 36 people on board. After that was Lifeboat 3, starboard again, with 32 people on board. And Lifeboat 8, which is our first portside lifeboat, only had 27 people on board. This all took place in around 20 minutes. So 4 lifeboats were launched in 20 minutes, severely under capacity. All the meanwhile, the transmission is going out to all of these other ships in the ocean, being like, hey, we're sinking. Someone come over here. SOS. Someone please come get us. We're scared. Lifeboat 1, starboard, and Lifeboat 6 on the port side were launched next. 1 was only carrying 12 people, and 6 only 24, making these 2 the lowest packed lifeboats. Let me say that again. Lifeboat 1 was only carrying 12 people.
Jesus.
Out of 65. Lifeboat 16 on the port side came after, with only 14 people on board.
Oh my goodness. They were just like, yep, that's fine. No worries. Gosh, they just did not know what they were doing at all. Like, at all.
And this happened quickly. So a lot of the first 4 went out in 20 minutes. The next 3, I think, also happened within a 20-minute window. That's 7 of your 20 lifeboats. I don't think people realized the urgency that was going on.
Yeah.
They were understaffing. There was no urgency. They had already lost about half of their lifeboats. And then the panic starts setting in where they're like, shit, I'm not on a lifeboat. And there's like 1,000 people still on board.
Yeah. Oh my God. And like you said, they're going quick.
Yes. So Lifeboat 16 is actually when the urgency kicked in. And she was sent off with 52 people on board, so double what the first lifeboat had.
Yeah.
Lifeboat 14, which came after, had about 40 people on board.
Jeez.
Lifeboat 12 on the port side and Lifeboat 9 on the starboard side were next, with 41 and 40 respectively, so at least we're getting a couple of people.
Yeah.
Then came 11 and 13, both on the starboard side, with 50 and 55. At this point, the Titanic has launched 12 of her 16 solid lifeboats.
Jesus.
And only has 1 left on the starboard side.
God.
Not including the collapsibles. We still have the collapsibles.
Yeah.
All 4 were still available as a last resort. They really didn't want to crack into these things if they didn't have to.
Well, gosh. Oh my goodness. I'm so anxious listening to that. I know what's going to happen, but I'm still just like, and?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
While the urgency is ramping up, the Titanic is still sending out that wireless broadcast. They're sending out the CQD, MGY, SOS, CQD, sinking. Come get us. We're scared. So in addition to the wireless transmissions, the Titanic is also releasing rockets. So little fireworks and flares are being sent off, just being like, hey,
oh God,
we're here, just in case you have your radio off. Like, come get us.
But like you said, it looks like a party boat. They're just like, look at them doing fireworks, having so much fun out there. That little happy little Titanic boat. They're having a great time.
Yes. Other boats did see it, but they were too far away to offer any assistance, except the Californian, who was 20 miles away. Now, it's reported that the Californian did see the rockets, but they just didn't respond. And they actually got into a lot of trouble for this later, but that's a story for another day.
Yeah, like they're just like, SOS.
They were like, that's a party boat.
No worries.
They haven't got their radio on. They can see the rockets and like, Titanic doing their regularly scheduled 1 a.m. fireworks show again. Classic Titanic.
Oh my gosh, I'm mad for them.
Yeah, it's just a comedy of errors at this point, where it's just like, it would be so funny if it wasn't so tragic.
Seriously, like that's just actually crazy that you see any sort of distress signal and you're just like, it's probably fine. Yeah. No, it's probably not. Don't assume that.
Probably not. Just assume the worst. If the Titanic is tugging your chain and you're late because of the Titanic's goof, that's on the Titanic and you can sue them. But do not play with people's lives, people. Do not play with them.
No, not worth it.
No. So a radio operator on board the SS Burma received the distress call, but it estimated that it would only arrive at 6 a.m., 5 hours after the first transmission went out. So I'm also sure a lot of these ships also expected there to be someone a little bit closer to come and help, and they would be able to come and help faster. So these farther away ships were just like, there's no point. Like, by the time we get there, everything's over.
Yeah.
There just wasn't anyone. Nobody was close. The Californian was, but they weren't responsive. There was one ship, however, that did receive the call for help, and This particular ship was actually at decent proximity to the Titanic, and they were actually between the Titanic and New York. So they were on the return trip, and they were heading to Austria-Hungary. So they had a much longer destination in mind, but they were leaving from New York, and they were heading basically the same route. They had not been in frequent radio contact with the Titanic. They were like, Titanic's just like, they're telling people to shut up. They're just like, hey, we're on a boat. Sandra had this for lunch, Aunt Martha. Like we're kind of tuning them out at this point.
Yeah.
The radio operator at the time of night was a guy called Harold Cottam, and he'd been on the bridge and actually had missed the first few transmissions from the Titanic before the collision. So there was actually nobody manning the Marconi system before the collision. At around midnight on the 14th, morning of the 15th, Cottam returned to the radio to listen to any last-minute transmissions before bed, and he was like, "It's time for sleep. Time to shut this whole thing down." But you know what? I am a good Marconi radio operator. I'm just gonna sit there for 30 minutes and just see what I hear, because just in case.
Yeah.
You never know. So as he sat down onto the radio for just to see what was going on, he received a communication from Cape Cod, Massachusetts, and they had a message for the Titanic, weirdly enough.
Oh.
They were like, "Hey, can you just we have a message from the Titanic. Can you let Titanic know when you bump into them to radio us as soon as they get close enough? We just got some information about piers." I think it was something to do with just how their final destination on April 17th was going to go, how they were going to sail by. But it was a private message. They didn't divulge any details. It was like, "Hey, if you hear, if you see the Titanic, just let them know that we're trying to get hold of them."
Yeah.
Cottam's like, "Great, I'll call them right now and let them know."
Yeah.
So Cottam sent a message out about 12:11 a.m. saying, "Hey, Titanic, just heard from Massachusetts, and they want to chat with you when you get closer."
Oh, God.
At 12:50, Cottam got the response: CQD, MGY, SOS, CQD, some coordinates, and then sinking. Cottam's like, "Oh, fuck."
Yeah.
So he immediately takes the message to the bridge, where the officers were a little bit skeptical.
Yeah.
They were like, White Star Line, always joking around.
Gosh.
With their party boats and their fireworks, and they're casually reporting that they're sinking.
Jesus.
So Cottam, rightfully pissed, ran through the ship and immediately alerted the captain, Arthur Henry Roston, who was sleeping at the time. So Roston was like, "Bitch, you wake me up for this fucking shit?" And he actually scolded Cottam for waking him up. But after seeing Cottam's seriousness and urgency in trying to relay this message, was like, "Okay, let's check this out."
Good, okay.
So the two of them returned to the bridge and ordered the ship to turn around and assist.
Good.
Roston once again confirmed with Cottam that the distress signal was in fact coming from the Titanic. He confirmed the coordinates and told the chief engineer to wake up the next shift of coal stokers because they needed to go full speed to get to them.
Full speed ahead.
So this ship's name was the RMS Carpathia. She was a Cunard ship, and she sailed straight into the ice field to go and assist.
Wow.
She was 3.5 hours away.
This doesn't sound like she's gonna make it.
Fucking Cunard, man.
Man. I love that they're trying, though.
They're trying. They're the only ones that are trying.
Mm-hmm.
So, meanwhile, back on the Titanic, they're loading the last of the lifeboats. At 1:41 a.m., Lifeboat 15, the last starboard boat, is loaded with 66 people, making this the only lifeboat to go over capacity.
Yeah.
Lifeboat 2, on the port side, was launched with 18 people on board. How's that for a weird juxtaposition? Lifeboat 10 and 4, the only remaining proper boats, are released at 1:50 a.m. with 57 people and 30 people, respectively, leaving only the collapsibles left.
Gosh.
While the crew worked to fill these lifeboats, they had a very strict women and children only policy. Priority was also placed on first-class passengers and maybe second class if they got there early enough. Third class was largely left to fend for themselves, and many of the third-class passengers, being lower inside the ship, got trapped below deck. Not that they weren't locked in, as the 1997 movie reports. Mm-hmm. They weren't locked in. They were simply, they didn't take the urgency very seriously. And then by the time the urgency was taken, the ship was listing so badly that they actually couldn't get to the top deck.
Jeez.
So survival rate of women were about 75%, children were about 50%, and men were only at a 20% survival rate.
Jesus, 20%, man. Mm-hmm. Even children being 50%. I get it, just because children are so feeble, you know.
But it's also most of the children on board were third-class passengers, so they stayed with their families.
Yeah, that's true. We talked about that. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, most children were third class, so they physically couldn't get to the lifeboats. They absolutely had the priority, but they couldn't get to them. So the only children that were saved were mostly first class and second class children, and they were very rare. So unfortunately, most children got trapped.
Jeez.
So 2 a.m., the first collapsible C, is released with 43 people on board. 5 minutes later, collapsible D is released with 20 people on board. At 2:15, the final 2 lifeboats, collapsible A and B, are washed out to sea with nobody on board due to rising water and the tilt of the ship.
Oh, God.
The Titanic's final distress transmission went out at 2:10 a.m., April 15th. It was about 2.5 hours since she had struck the iceberg, and her rate of sinking had very suddenly increased. So it was kind of calm. Oh, no, we're up. Just because that was the rate that the water entered. Her bow was now completely submerged, and water was now flooding through open windows, doors, staircases. It was basically coming over the bulkheads, and it was starting to get into the other watertight compartments.
Yeah.
The Titanic's orchestra played through the whole emergency, trying to keep people calm and trying to keep morale high.
Wow, they really did.
They really did. They played all the way up until the end. The orchestra was made up of 8 musicians, a 3-piece that played at a few restaurants, and a 5-piece that played special events, tea time, and after-dinner concerts. They actually joined together for the final night, so these 2 separate bands became an 8-man big band. The orchestra was not employed by the White Star Line, but rather a third-party contracting company, and this practice is actually still used today on modern cruise ships. It's just easier to get a band that's contracted rather than be like, these are the White Star Line musicians.
Gotcha.
It's reported that their last song that they played was a hymn called Nearer My God to Thee. Other sources suggest it also might have been Song d'Automne or just Autumn, as it's often known. None of the musicians survived.
Wow. That is really eerie and sad and just, wow.
Yeah. So 2:15 a.m. All lifeboats are gone. The ship was now at a very severe angle, and people were desperately climbing the tilting ship, jumping into the water, anything they could think of to save themselves.
Yeah.
The front of the boat had completely filled with water and was pulling the whole front of the ship down. Mm-hmm. It basically dragged the entire end of the boat high into the air. It was described that the back was pulled so high they could see the propellers above the water.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yes. Majority of people that were left behind on board fled to the back as it raised out of the water, so they were basically at the highest point. And then as it got steeper and steeper, they either fell or just clung for just hours.
Jesus.
People were thrashing in the water, desperately clinging to anything that's floating, trying to save themselves. Collapsible A, as it had been swept away, had been desperately climbed by passengers just trying to cling to something. So they actually did find Collapsible A in the water.
Wow, okay.
As it had hit the water, it actually became partially submerged and threw several passengers out, so it never quite settled.
Yeah.
Most who were thrown out did climb back in, but either fell back into the water or died of hypothermia. Only 14 people survived in Collapsible A.
Jeez.
Collapsible B had pretty much been a disaster from start to finish. Before she stepped away, she actually broke through her launch ramp and landed upside down on the deck.
Yeah.
There was no time to flip her before she slid across the deck and plowed through several people, knocking them into the water.
Oh my gosh.
One of the Titanic's funnels actually collapsed at this point, so it actually snapped apart from the Titanic, and it crushed several people in the water and pushed Collapsible B further out into the sea, still upside down. Several passengers swam to the upside-down vessel and simply climbed aboard, trying to balance on her hull. Through the night, she slowly began to sink and soaked her desperate passengers. Only 28 people survived on this lifeboat.
God, this is really just horrific. I'm at a loss for words. I know I just keep saying, oh geez, but like, I'm at a loss for like other things to say because I just don't know how to process that. Like it's just a lot.
It's just horrible. And it's just how it ramps up. I think that's the worst part of it, where it is just, it's not urgent. It's calm. You know, we're only tilting like a little bit to the front, and then like 30 minutes later, like the ship is nearly vertical, all the lifeboats are gone, and there's just panic. It's just mass panic.
Oh yeah, and like you said, I'm sure it's dark, it's cold, there's screaming. Like I'm sure the chaos is just something we can't even fathom.
Yeah,
thankfully,
100%. Thankfully, we will probably never have a disaster to this scale nautically ever again. But it's only because it comes in the wake of a disaster of this scale.
Yeah.
The Titanic was described as going nearly vertical before her weight took hold and pulled the whole boat down.
Wow.
It was actually believed for a long time that the Titanic was pulled down in one solid piece, but was later discovered that she actually snapped in two.
Wow. Okay. I know there was like rumors of that, but I was never sure if that was like actually a thing or not.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that in a later episode. But for now, we can just we'll clear the air. She snapped in two, but we're not really sure how it happened.
Interesting.
So because she snapped in two, more water flowed into the back, and eventually that pulled the back down as well. Mm-hmm. The entire Titanic foundered at 2:20 a.m. April 15th. All in all, from the moment of collision to her demise, only 160 minutes or 2 hours and 40 minutes had passed.
Wow. It sounds like a long time, like 2 hours, you know, like, wow, 2 hours. But like for 2 hours and this tragedy to just happen, like that is not a lot of time. It
is unfathomable. Because I'm sure the first hour and a half were very calm and very like, what's going on? Like, like nothing's going on. And then as soon as that hour and 40-minute mark happened, it was just everything's going on. Everyone's panicking. Where are all the lifeboats? What's going on? Where's my family? It was just nuts.
And I'm sure it was a lot at the beginning of like, kind of rumor about like, did we hit something? I heard we hit something. Oh no, I heard we didn't hit it. We're fine. You know what I mean? Like it's just like so much he said, she said, and that's why it like there was probably not a lot of panic, because it was just like, I don't know, do I trust this other random boat passenger that's telling us that we hit a light boat, like hit the iceberg, like, you know, like, is it really worth me rushing and passing all my things and getting on a boat in this freezing cold water in the dead of night? We'll see. We'll wait and see.
Yeah, and then there's that fear of like, oh, well, if I get in the lifeboat, then I'm dropped 70 feet into the freezing water. What if we tilt? What if we like fall? What if something like hits us? Like, what are we going to do? We're completely on our own out there. And it's just... Yeah. If we had done a lifeboat drill, maybe like a lot of this could have been prevented, or like a lot more people would have survived. But it's the outcome of quite literally a comedy of errors, and it would be funny if it wasn't so sad.
Truly.
It was now about 2:30 in the morning. There was kicking, screaming, wailing, crying, begging to be pulled into the emptier boats.
Oh, God.
But fear of capsizing prevented most of the lifeboat gang from helping.
Yeah.
The mass of the Titanic going down affected the current. This knocked several lifeboats about, so the threat of tipping over was very real.
Yeah.
It was pitch black. It was freezing. It was windless. It was moonless. And as the minutes ticked by, the night grew stiller and stiller. And then there was silence.
God, that's so eerie to go from like screaming, crying, pleading to just absolute silence. Like, that's worse. I'm sorry, that's just worse.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's...
It's the calm after the storm at this point. It's just, you're floating in this black void. It's the same. It's the night before. But suddenly there's this ocean liner that isn't there anymore. There's 20 boats and just floating, well, not even 20. It's like 19 and a half boats floating in this void. You've got people desperately clinging to debris. You've got fields of just people in the water. And it just goes from panic to just silence, just whimpering, just crying.
Jeez. Did they have lights on their boats at all?
I don't believe the boats had lights, but some were equipped with flares, but they saved those for when they had an idea that someone was coming to help them, which they didn't know if anyone was.
Oh, jeez.
So, yeah, all the lifeboats and survivors were now just waiting for a rescue they weren't sure was coming. And they sat out there in the black void for 2 hours.
I'm sure it felt like so much longer.
It's just 2 hours of just sitting in a lifeboat or clinging whatever you could in hopes of rescue. It's the same length of time that the panic on the Titanic happened. From when the distress signal and the order for the lifeboats to start being loaded, that's 2 hours, and then it's the same amount of time for just waiting in these little boats in the middle of the night, just desperately hoping that someone's coming.
Jeez.
So, April 15th, 4 a.m. Fourth Officer Boxhall sees something in the distance heading their way. The sun was just starting to come up, and he immediately recognized the faint shape of a ship. Now, the ship was roughly approaching the approximate coordinates of the Titanic that they had been broadcasting, so they sent up a couple of rockets. In response, Fourth Officer Boxhall, who had packed several Roman candles, lit them, trying to signal for aid. The RMS Carpathia had now arrived. She saw the candles being lit from Lifeboat 2 and pulled alongside the boat.
Wow.
The first lifeboat was rescued and brought on board the Carpathia at 4:10 a.m.
Wow.
One by one, not all, 18 of the 20 lifeboats were picked up by the Carpathia, several of them rowing towards her for rescue. Passengers on the collapsible lifeboats A and B were pulled into empty lifeboats and then ferried onto the Carpathia. Collapsible C was towed behind a lifeboat that had rigged a sail. So they actually built a sail to get to the Carpathia.
Wow.
So as they loaded people onto the Carpathia, the sheer size of the ice field they were in became alarmingly present because now the sun's coming up.
Yeah.
They were smack dab in the middle of a 4-mile ice field surrounded by icebergs.
Oh my gosh.
Years later, Rostron told a friend, "When day broke, I saw all the ice I had steamed through during the night. I shuddered, and I could only think that some other hand than mine was on the helm that night."
Jesus.
The area was described by Rostron as an ice field with 20 large bergs measuring up to 200 feet tall, or 61 meters, along with several smaller bergs. There were also ice floes and debris from the Titanic scattered everywhere. Passengers would describe the place as being in the middle of a vast white plain of ice. The area today is actually now known as Iceberg Alley.
Wow. That's a pretty apt name, it sounds like.
Yeah, there were a lot of icebergs. It's a big ice area.
Yeah.
So the rescue effort took 4 hours to shuttle everybody on board the Carpathia.
Wow.
And they pulled the last few people aboard at 8 a.m., April 15th. So 2 hours of waiting after the Titanic went below the water, and then 4 hours of just sitting on these boats waiting to be pulled onto the Carpathia.
God, I'm sure people were not only physically but mentally exhausted at that point of just God, I'm sure it felt like days.
Yeah, I'm sure the people who survived probably aged like 20 years in the span of 6 hours. Just years of their life sheared away just by the horrificness of the event.
Yeah.
So once all lifeboats and collapsibles had been emptied, they were quickly housed inside the Carpathia, and she immediately turned back and headed straight for New York. The Carpathia's actual passengers, because she was a passenger liner just like the Titanic, her actual passengers immediately rallied around the survivors. They started donating bunks, beds, clothes, food, blankets, whatever they could spare.
Wow. That's so nice.
So only 706 people survived.
Oh my gosh.
1,517 people lost their lives.
That's really, really sad.
It's just the numbers are unreal. Just the sheer number of people that lost their lives that night in the span of like 2 hours.
Yeah. Gosh. That's just a giant tragedy. Truly.
Mm-hmm. So our boy Cottam, the Marconi radio operator for the Carpathia, sent out a message to all nearby ships, telling basically just the fate of the Titanic and her passengers. Cottam was immediately overwhelmed with messages all over the Atlantic. Basically, all these other ships that are just waking up going, "Hello, everyone. Good morning. The Titanic sank? Are you kidding me?" Yeah, so immediately overwhelmed. Harold Bride, the Titanic's only surviving Marconi operator, so our boy Jack Phillips, who had stayed up all night to fix the Marconi radio operator and the one that had told the California to shut up, he's busy, he didn't make it.
Wow.
The other one, Harold Bride, is our only surviving Marconi operator. And he actually volunteered to help Cottam just respond to these messages. So in a tragedy, got on a boat, and he's just like, all right, time to do my job.
Yeah. Wow. What a true professional. Holy wow.
Well, hold on, because Bride was actually suffering from extreme frostbite in his feet, and he actually had to be carried into the radio room so that he could do his job.
Jesus, that's dude, learn to take a moment. Your life is worth more. Just chill.
He did the damn thing.
Man.
So, weirdly enough, the Olympic was actually in the Atlantic, not too far from the Titanic's distress call. She was about 500 miles south of the collision. She was under the command of Captain Herbert James Haddock. What a name. And the Olympic was actually on her way back from New York to Southampton, so she was traveling the opposite route from the Titanic.
Okay.
When they received the distress call from the Titanic, the Olympic immediately sprung into action as well. Captain Haddock ordered the Olympic to redirect course and went full speed to assist in the rescue. When she was about 100 miles away, the Olympic received a message from the Carpathia that they had arrived on scene, and that the Olympic should abort its course for aid. The message that was sent out was all boats accounted for, about 675 souls saved, Titanic foundered at 2:20 a.m. The Carpathia then requested that the Olympic relay the message to the rest of the White Star Line in Cunard, and that they were taking the survivors back to New York. Well, of course, Olympic's like, look, man, like, how can I help? Like, I'm here, I'm 100 miles away, do you want me to take the passengers? Like, what do you need me to do?
Yeah, I'm already here.
Yeah, the Carpathia simply responded that asking survivors to board a mirror image of the Titanic might not be the best idea right now, considering the circumstances.
True.
So the Olympic, of course, obliged and returned to its pre-scheduled voyage back to Southampton. So the Olympic did try to help, but the Carpathia was like, look, man, like, I know you're trying to help, but like, now is not the time. You literally look like what we just survived.
Yeah, it's empathetic of them to realize that too, and to even point that out and just be like, you know what? I think it's just, we appreciate it, but I think it's better to not.
Yeah, like, thank you so much, but like, I don't think it's going to help that much.
Yeah, thanks, but no thanks. Bye.
Thanks, yes. So, when news got out that the Titanic had sunk, of course, the press had a field day. So while the Carpathia was still out on the Atlantic and on its way to New York with the survivors, all sorts of rumors kicked up. So, of course, there were deniers. There's no way that the Titanic could have sunk. She was unsinkable. Like, we've proven that the Titanic was unsinkable.
I was just hearing from my Aunt Mary the other day on. She was having fish on a boat. What are you talking about?
She was on the boat. Then it was reported that the Titanic had been damaged, but was instead being towed back to New York by the SS Virginian, while the passengers had been transferred to the Carpathia.
Oh.
Then it was officially confirmed that the Titanic really had sunk, and the death toll was staggering. So massive crowds formed formed in front of the White Star Line offices in London, New York, Montreal, Southampton, Liverpool, and Belfast, demanding news, update, reasons, explanation, basically anything. They were just like, give us an answer for like why the fuck this happened.
Yeah.
Naturally, the crowds were the worst in Southampton, because that was where most of the families of the passengers and crew were from. So 4 out of every 5 crew members actually came from Southampton. So like that was basically like that was their town. The Carpathia arrived in New York around 9:30 p.m. April 18th, 1912, 3 days after the collision. So also a day after the Titanic was scheduled to arrive. It was raining heavily. By this point, the world had heard the news. Thousands upon thousands of people were standing on the docks waiting to witness the arrival of the Titanic survivors. Relatives, friends, anyone who knew anyone aboard was desperately looking as 706 people disembarked, broken from their ordeal. Searchlights were poured into the harbor, lighting up the port like it was daytime. And of course it's raining, so it's just miserable. It's almost like a prison walk at this point. It's raining, there are searchlights, people are broken, and there's just thousands of people just clawing at them, being like, are you my loved one? Are you my friend? Like, where are they?
Yeah.
Now remember, there was no way to know who had survived until the survivors made it back to New York. So pretty much everyone's families who were anyone were waiting to get a glimpse, and just it was either going to be the greatest sigh of relief, or it was just going to be the worst news possible.
Yeah, and like I don't know how you prepare for that. Like you said, of just going and like waiting and just being like, are they okay?
Yeah,
I have no idea.
Yeah. So aid was immediately handed out, including clothing, food, and there was free transportation to shelters for people who had nowhere to go. Most of the survivors did not linger in New York, but immediately headed to their relatives or intended destinations. Wealthier survivors chartered trains or cars, and some train lines even offered high discounts to those traveling to specific destinations like Philadelphia. They were like, "Are you a survivor of the Titanic? Just get on here. We're going to take you out of here."
Wow.
The Titanic's 214 surviving crew were all put on a steamer, the SS Lapland, and they were given passenger cabins for a journey home.
Wow. That is nice of them, though, true. To be like, hey, all right, you know what? Taking the day off. Let's just get you home.
Let's try and get you home. Well, they tried to get them home, but more on that later.
No.
The Carpathia was quickly restocked with provisions and sent back out into the Atlantic to resume her original journey back to Austria-Hungary. They're like, "Thank you so much, hero ship. Here is all of your supplies back, free of charge. Just go. Be free. Be free, hero ship."
No.
Her crew was given an additional month's wages by Cunard for their heroic actions, and some of the wealthier Titanic survivors chipped in with a bonus all their own.
Wow.
They were like, "Thank you so much. That you guys, Cunard, you're all right, Cunard.
Yeah.
Carpathia, fuck, you guys are the best." So it took 4 days to complete the list of casualties and release it to the general public after they had made it to New York.
Yeah, I'm sure it took a while to do a head count and actually really be like, did that guy really make it home? Did he not? Who knows?
Mm-hmm. And yeah, and even then, I don't know if they counted everyone correctly. Some people were missed. It was posted outside of the White Star offices all over the world and all of the destinations that I mentioned earlier. And this was the most common way for relatives to discover if their loved ones had died or lived. Because some of them were trapped in England, they were trapped in France, they were trapped in Canada. They couldn't make it down to New York for whatever reason, or they couldn't make it in time. Mm-hmm. So this was basically the announcement, but where they figured out if their loved one had survived or not. So now, of course, came the inquiries and the payouts. So back in January, both the Olympic and the Titanic had been insured for £1 million, which is about £102 million today per ship.
Wow.
So White Star Line got their payout within 30 days of the Titanic sinking. And countless charities were set up for the survivors. In most cases, the sole breadwinner, aka the husband or the father, had been killed aboard the Titanic, leaving many families not only grief-stricken, but now in financial crisis. Some third-class survivors had lost not only their family members, but literally all of their worldly possessions and everything that they owned aboard the ship.
Jeez.
To nobody's surprise, more than 60 survivors across the US and Britain sued the White Star Line.
Yeah, not surprising.
No, not surprising in the slightest. The claims totaled $16,804,112, or $419 million today.
Jesus.
That is significantly more than the White Star Line got in its insurance payout. White Star Line argued that the collision, though horribly tragic, was not really their fault.
What?
And they actually took it all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court.
What? I'm sorry, what? That's crazy.
Yeah, so the White Star Line's they got sued for putting people in mortal danger, and they were like, it is not our fault that there was an iceberg there. It is not our fault.
Yeah, how are we supposed to know?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
The Supreme Court actually ruled in White Star Line's favor, ruling that the ship's sinking was largely unforeseeable, and it was a freak accident, rather than being caused by negligence. As a result, the suing survivors and families had to greatly reduce the amount that they were suing for. White Star Line settled for $664,000, or $16.56 million today, which is only 27% of the original claim.
Wow. Not enough.
No, not enough indeed. So 2 major inquiries were launched, one by the US and one by the UK. So the US Senate inquiry began on the 19th of April, 4 days after the collision, and a day after the Carpathia arrived in New York. The goal was to get as much information from witnesses while the events were still fresh. So the Senate actually subpoenaed all surviving British passengers, stopping them from returning to the UK before the inquiry was completed on May 25th, over a month later.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, the chairman, Senator William Alden Smith, faced a fair bit of criticism for this. They were like, hey, these people are survivors of a horrific tragedy and you're preventing them from going home to their loved ones for a month.
Yeah, you're going to hold them hostage?
In a foreign country. Foreign country. It's actually speculated that he pulled this move to investigate possible malpractices by the White Star owns J.P. Morgan, who was also a railroad tycoon, and the U.S. Senate had been paying attention to.
And more on that later.
More on that later. Well, don't read ahead. So the British inquiry was carried out from May 2nd to July 3rd and worked while the U.S. inquiry was coming to a close. So they actually waited for the U.S. to finish their research before they kicked in their own.
Okay.
This inquiry was run by the Board of Trade, who had previously approved the Titanic as fit to sail. So both inquiries interviewed and took testimony from passengers and crew of the Titanic, the crew of the Californian, Captain Rostron of the Carpathia, as well as other maritime experts. Now, this inquiry went hard, and it was considered the longest and most detailed inquiry in British history at the time.
Wow. I mean, rightfully so.
Yes. Naturally, the Olympic was used in the inquiries after the tragedy, since they were basically identical twins.
Okay.
So the Olympics lifeboats, watertight doors, bulkheads, you name it, they were analyzed to try and make sense of what happened and why it happened the way that it did. They also performed sea turning tests at various speeds to see how long it would have taken the Titanic to turn after the iceberg had been spotted. So they were like, okay, well, we know the iceberg was spotted here, and we know that we turned here. So, like, did they have enough time? Was it negligence? Like, if they had spotted it a little bit earlier and they started turning here, would that have been fine? If they had been going at a slower speed, if they were going at top speed, they did everything.
Interesting. And what were their findings?
So both inquiries arrived at the same conclusion. The number of lifeboats aboard the ship were inadequate, and the regulations of the time were out of date.
Yeah.
Captain Smith had also failed to heed all 6 ice warnings. The lifeboats had not been properly filled or manned, and the collision was a direct result of sailing into a dangerous area at too high a speed.
Okay.
With that said, neither inquiry found White Star Line or IMM as negligent.
That makes no sense.
They were like, it's pretty much your fault, but we're not going to hold you accountable.
How could you have known better when you were warned so many times?
Yeah, they were just warnings. Yeah. So the U.S. Senate inquiry ruled the accident as an act of God.
What?
That was the actual ruling of the U.S. inquiry. They were like...
Yeah, because that's how icebergs work. They just get, like, thrown there.
Yeah, God did it. God fucking hated White Star Line, and he hated the Titanic.
Yep. And he saw him going right through an ice field and said, you know what? That's a great place to throw an iceberg.
Yes, but more on that later.
Right.
So the Board of Trade inquiry concluded that Captain Smith was following standard procedure that up until this point had not been unsafe. So he was basically doing what everyone else was doing. So, like, we can't really fault him for that. In fact, of all the British ships that had sailed in the last decade, only 10 people had lost their lives. So of all of the ocean liners in the last 10 years, only 10 people had lost their lives to nautical accidents.
Up until this point. And then, it's, you know...
Then we lost 1,500 people.
Yeah, I'm like 1,000 freaking...
Yes.
Wow.
They hammered home, like, how unsafe this was. So...
Oh, my God.
It was ruled that any other captain, if any other captain had been in the same situation, they would have done exactly the same thing, and the outcome would have been exactly the same.
I don't know if I think that's true.
Heck, the Carpathia, on its way to rescue the Titanic, had done the exact same thing. They had been going full speed into an ice field, basically using everything the Titanic had done. They just got luckier. And thankfully, the sun was coming up when they hit the actual coordinates, so they could see. But pretty much for the entire night before, they couldn't see shit.
That's fair. I guess you're not wrong. I just feel like anyone that hears that sentence out loud would just be like, you know, that doesn't sound like a good idea. Let's not do that.
That was common practice for the time. Every ship, every single ship, even the ones that did the ice warnings, they were doing the exact same thing. And it was just, unfortunately, it was the Titanic that was the one that took the hit.
Oh, dear. Oh, dear.
So, fault was found with the Titanic maintaining its top speed after 6 ice warnings. And it actually would be considered negligence by any other ship in future cases. So they were like, we'll give the Titanic a pass this time, because this was like the first time this has ever happened. Any other ship does the same thing, it is immediately negligence.
Okay.
So it was ruled that maritime regulations would need to be updated and implemented with brand new shiny safety measures.
All right.
These included adequate number of lifeboats aboard the ship, mandatory lifeboat drills that were to be performed regularly with repeat training for crew,
Good.
And finally, wireless equipment on passenger ships must be maintained at all times of the day and the night.
Wow. Okay. Those are some big good rules to come out of this, I think.
Those are some big good rules, and pretty much if the Titanic had had any of those, it would not nearly have been as bad. But unfortunately, it had none of those, and that is why everything got updated. And this is a reminder, the Titanic was technically ahead for safety measures at the time. People were like, why do you have 20 lifeboats? You could probably just, get 10 in there and you'll be fine.
Yeah. Gosh.
Yeah.
Gosh, people.
Yeah. So that's just a friendly reminder that the Titanic was safety conscious for her time. And at the end of it, they were like, fuck, our whole system is just so outdated. An international ice patrol was established to monitor the presence of icebergs in the North Atlantic, which is always really nice.
Yeah.
And all maritime regulations should be enforced internationally. So no longer US had its own rules and the UK had its own rules and the international waters kind of just floated somewhere in the middle. It was whatever ship belonged to which was just, it followed its own rules. Now there was an international mandatory protocol. The US agreed upon it, the UK agreed upon it, Europe agreed upon it, Canada agreed upon it. Basically anyone who was sailing the North Atlantic route now had to abide by these regulations.
That's good.
So both the Ice Patrol and the International Convention for Safety of Life at Sea are still in force today.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so that's a long-standing effect.
It really is. That's a huge, huge impact that one incident had.
Yeah, the Titanic was quite literally just like a huge ripple on safety regulations at the time. So after the tragic accident, J.P. Morgan himself had this to say: monetary losses amount to nothing in life. It is the loss of life that counts. It is that frightful death. J.P. Morgan would actually pass away less than a year later after the Titanic hit the iceberg.
How?
Why? Why did he die?
Yeah, literally. I need to know. I don't trust
You're
that.
really hung up on this J.P. Morgan stuff. I wonder why. It was attributed to a deteriorating health and a long sinking spell, which I think is the poorest choice of words.
Yeah, it really is.
So the biggest symptom that he had was paralysis on the muscles of his throat. Some people attribute his death to a broken heart after the Titanic, but he's a businessman, and I don't really attribute that. I think he was just a well man with a not necessarily great lifestyle, and then just the grief of it all kind of just was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah.
But yeah, he did pass away shortly after.
Wow. I don't trust it. Don't buy it.
Yeah. All in all, only 32% of all people on board the Titanic survived.
Okay.
That's only 706 people.
Jesus.
So, with the number of lifeboats and space on those lifeboats, so if they had been packed properly to capacity, if everything had been running smoothly, if everything had gone according to plan and they could save the maximum number of people, the number that could have survived was 1,192, or 53.6%. So we would have gone from a third to half.
Which is better, but...
It's better, but it's not great.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the fate of the passengers for a little bit, starting with our notable passengers that I brought up in our last episode. Mm-hmm. So starting from first class, Dorothy Gibson. She was our lovely silent film star, our little actress. So she was actually awake when the Titanic hit the iceberg. She had been up late playing bridge with some bankers and had only actually headed back to her stateroom about 11:40 p.m. on April 14th. She heard a long-drawn, sickening crunch, but she wasn't alarmed because boats make weird noises all the time.
Yep.
So she actually went out to investigate. When she noticed how lopsided the boat was getting, she was like, we're listing a little bit to the front. Kind of weird.
Yeah.
She quickly went to fetch her mother, who she was traveling with. According to Dorothy, Lifeboat 7, the one that she boarded, was practically empty when they boarded. I think Lifeboat 7, if I remember correctly, was the first one with only 28 people.
Oh, wow. So she, was real on it.
Yeah, so she was like, not really taking any chances, not feeling great about the situation. Mom, come with me. Let's, they're telling people to get on lifeboats. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So it was practically empty when they boarded, and they actually found the bankers that they had been playing bridge with, and they were like, hey, why don't you come on the lifeboat with us? And the bankers were allowed because the urgency had not set in yet.
Oh, okay.
So Dorothy and her mother were saved, and Dorothy later went on to star in the very first Titanic movie, which she basically played herself.
Okay.
So she was even wearing the same outfit that she was saved in.
That's eerie.
the film came out barely a month after the tragedy.
That's so... I mean, like, she being on one of the first lifeboats, I'm sure, like, was not as traumatic as, like, some of those things that later survivors experienced, but also she still heard all of the screaming. She still heard all of the pleading. Like, there was still a lot of trauma associated with that from any survivor. And the fact that she was just like, yeah, let me literally just go reenact that with a group of people. Like, that's not healthy.
I mean, everyone copes with trauma in different ways, but like this, I mean, it feels kind of bad, especially it was only a month after the tragedy.
Yeah.
Like if it had been like a year, I would have been like, okay, we've processed a little bit, but like they were like, gotta make a movie about this. Gotta be done.
No, that's fresh. That wound is fresh.
That's a fresh wound. All right, moving on. John Jacob Astor IV, our wealthiest passenger and probably the wealthiest man alive at the time, and his young bride. So, the Titanic hit the iceberg. Astor was in no way alarmed, as most people weren't. So the captain himself had actually advised Astor to wake Madeline, his young bride, so they could actually head to the lifeboats. Astor told Madeline that they had hit something, but severely underplayed the damage.
Oh.
When the lifeboats were being loaded, he and Madeline actually headed to the first-class gym instead, and they were just chilling out. They're just hanging.
And they're like, no line at the treadmill. Haha.
Yeah, they were just like, well, just we'll get some quick exercise before, before everyone gets cleared out. It's really not that bad. Like, yeah, we hit something, but it's like, we're not going down. It's thought at some point Astor sliced open one of the life preservers, like one of the life belts that they had, to show Madeline the contents. And this was either to prove that they were useless or how effective they were. We're not really sure.
Either way, not the time.
Yes, he declared, we are safer here than in that little boat.
Okay.
Eventually, Madeline, her maid, and her nurse were loaded into Lifeboat 4. Astor asked to go with her since she was in a delicate condition, being pregnant. But at this point, it was women and children only, so no passage for Astor. He was told instead he could find her afterwards. He was last seen smoking with acclaimed mystery writer Jacques Futrelle on the bridge wing. Both he, Futrelle, his valet, and their dog did not survive. Oh. He was one of the bodies that were recovered.
Oh, wow.
Madeline made it, but Astor did not. So we've lost the wealthiest man alive at the time.
Yeah, that's part of my suspicions. I'm scared.
So, don't read ahead. Isidore Strauss, co-owner of Macy's. That guy.
Yeah.
Both he and his wife, Ida, did not survive. His wife Ida had actually been was actually being ushered into a lifeboat, which would have saved her, but she refused to leave her husband behind. Remember, it was women and children only, so basically, like, he wasn't getting on.
Man, I get that. That's so sad.
It's real sad. So a friend of the Strausses offered to ask an officer if an exception could be made. So he was like, hey, I can just call the bridge real quick. Like you're the co-founder of Macy's. Like, you're a big time deal. Like, we can probably get an exception for you and you can stay with Ida.
Yeah.
Strauss actually refused. He was like, I am not an exception, especially when women and children are still on board.
Wow.
So he was like, load the women and children, get everyone out. I will wait. I will wait my turn.
Wow.
So Ida remained steadfast by her husband. As we have lived, so we will die together. So they dismissed their maid and ensured that she got on a lifeboat. So they were like, you do not have to wait with us. Get on a lifeboat. We'll see you on the other side. Eyewitnesses described the scene as the most remarkable exhibition of love and devotion.
I literally was just about to say that almost to a T, man. Oh my God. Like, they're just like, no, maid, go. Like, especially for the times too. Like, I'm sure people were like, no, maid, stay with us. We need you until the last minute. We own you. You know, I'm sure it was really a pompous attitude. And yeah, I don't know. Just that's really sweet.
Yeah, it's very sweet and very, very tragic. So Isidore's body was recovered, but Ida was lost at sea. So he was buried in Brooklyn and later moved to the Bronx into a mausoleum. Their family collected an urn of seawater from the wreck site and placed it in the mausoleum so that the two were still connected, even in death.
Aww.
Yeah, so they're separated, but only physically.
Yeah. Man, what a nice sentiment.
Yeah. All right. Now to our boy Guggenheim. So Benjamin Guggenheim and his entourage were, of course, on board as well. Mm-hmm. Guggenheim and his secretary, Giglio, slept through the initial collision, while Orbar and Sagasser I really hope I'm saying their last names right. They felt it and actually went and woke up the men.
Okay.
They were not initially worried, as most people were not. They were fitted with their life jackets, and once they made it to the top deck, they actually helped women and children board various lifeboats. So they were like, come on, everybody, like, come on over, get you in the boat, everything's going to be fine.
Yeah.
He loaded Ogber and Sagacer into lifeboat 9 and said to Sagacer, we will soon see each other again. It's just a repair. Tomorrow the Titanic will go on again.
Oh.
He would realize a little later that things were a little bit more dire. The men returned to their suites knowing that they would not make it. So they actually donned their evening's finest. They actually got like dolled up. They put their suits on, they got their nice shoes, and it was reported that they just waited for the end. All 3 men in that entourage died in the sinking. Their bodies were not recovered or identified.
Wow. What a way to go out, though. Like you said, they're like, well, you know, if this is our last night on Earth, we're gonna look our best.
Oh yeah, gotta look real dapper.
Yeah.
It's the last night to do it. So, Countess of Rothes, our British royalty on board.
Yeah.
So she was actually heralded as a hero during the Titanic disaster.
Oh.
So the collision woke her up along with Gladys and her maid. And they actually made their way to lifeboat 8, the first lifeboat on the port side to be lowered. It's not the first, but just one of the first.
Yeah.
The seaman in charge of the boat, Tom Jones, you can't make this shit up. That's a guy named Tom Jones. He said that Rothes had a lot to say, so I put her in charge of steering the boat. She was observed to have steered for an hour before trading with Gladys and just went around comforting the rest of the women on board the lifeboat that had been separated from their husbands, as well as boosting morale. So she was going around going, come on, girls, don't let despair roll in. Like, we're going to see them again. We're going to make it to the other side. It's going to be okay. Like, we just got to hold out for a little bit longer.
Wow.
So when the Carpathia was sighted, Rose led her lifeboat in song.
Oh, wow. That's so heroic, actually so heroic. Like in this like moment of tragedy, like you said. And she's like, no, ladies, like, we got this. Come on. Up two. Like, that's just, man.
They were just singing. They were just keeping the morale high. So once they were on board the Carpathia, she immediately began to care for third-class women. So she helped patch damaged clothes, she was warming up babies, and she quickly earned the nickname Plucky Little Countess.
Oh, that's so cute.
So newspapers added that a stewardess told Rhodes, you have made yourself famous by rowing in the boat. To which she replied, I hope not. I have done nothing.
Oh, man.
Even after the disaster, she never claimed to be much of a help, and instead attributing the night's events to Tom Jones.
To Tom Jones, just some guy.
Just some guy named Tom Jones, as well as her cousin. And even the other occupants on the boat, she was like, they were the true heroes. Like, they did the damn thing.
Yeah.
So needless to say, all 3 women in her group survived and made it to New York.
Wow.
So our Mrs. Mary Eliza Compton, our oldest female passenger, did survive, as did her daughter, but her son, unfortunately, was lost.
Sad.
Thomas Andrews, our ship designer, who was on board to make sure that life and comfort were of an all-time high. So the night of the collision, he was actually in his cabin and had just returned from dinner. He was studying the blueprints of the ship when the collision happened.
That's sus.
So he thought nothing of it until the captain called him to the bridge. Andrews and Captain Smith then toured the entire front of the ship, inspecting the flooding. They went to the mail room, the squash court. They were just basically watching the water rush in.
Jeez.
When they returned to the bridge, Andrews reported that in view of the damage, the ship would likely not stay afloat for more than 2 hours. Pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Knowing he would not be on the lifeboats, Andrews wandered the decks, encouraging all passengers to wear their lifebelts and make their way to the lifeboats. He was last seen alive in the first-class smoking room, staring into space, his lifebelt removed. He did not survive. So, Baby Ismay, the owner of the White Star Line, he's on board.
Forgot about Baby Ismay.
Yes, Baby Ismay was on board. He does not really have any tales of heroism or much note attached to him, but that does not mean he wasn't trying to help. So, Ismay did board a lifeboat, but he boarded one of the collapsibles, so right before the collision, one of the last 4 to go out.
Yeah.
It was launched just 20 minutes before the Titanic went down. He would later testify that he was unable to watch the Titanic in her final moments as she went down. His collapsible was picked up by Carpathia 3 to 4 hours later. He did not leave his Carpathia cabin the entire journey to New York. He did not eat anything solid. Like, he just completely shut down.
Jeez.
Another survivor, a 17-year-old, went to comfort him, not to confront.
I was like, what confront? Oh my God.
The 17-year-old has a lot to say. No, the 17-year-old went to comfort him and reported, Ismay was staring straight ahead, shaking like a leaf. Even when I spoke to him, he paid absolutely no attention. I have never seen a man so completely wrecked.
That's so sad.
Naturally, baby Ismay was later dragged by both American and British press for deserting the ship when there were still women and children on board. He was quickly dubbed the coward of the Titanic.
Wow.
There were even some papers that suggested that the White Star Line be changed to the Yellow Liver Line. Yeah.
Wow.
So some people, of course, came to Ismay's defense. He was reported. It was reported that he helped as many people as he could before boarding his collapsible. His collapsible, number C, was the last lifeboat left on the Titanic to be lowered. And some reports state that it was virtually empty and was already being lowered when Ismay jumped onto it.
Oh wow.
Another passenger of Collapsible C, William Carter, said that they only boarded when they were sure there were no other women and children around that could be saved. That said, Mrs. Lucille Carter, William Carter's wife, sued her husband for divorce in 1914 for abandoning her and their children after the collision and left them to fend for their own.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I don't know how much about that.
Oh God. Yeah, I don't know, man. I feel bad adding to anyone's survivor's guilt already of this event. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, I actually, when I was in college, one of the many times I was in college, there was actually a production called The Last Lifeboat that was put on, and it was the story of Ismay.
Oh, wow.
And it did not paint him in a very favorable light, I'm going to tell you that. It was very much like, look at my boat, it's amazing. Look at my boat, it's sinking. Look at my boat, it's gone.
Oh my gosh.
It was that. That was the whole play. I don't remember enjoying the play, but I also don't think I was super invested in Ismay's story. I didn't really know who he was at the time. I kind of wish I'd paid attention now, but, you know.
Yeah.
Life's full of weird things like that.
Right? I know.
So Ismay resigned as president from the IMM as chairman of the White Star Line. And as chairman of the White Star Line on June 30th, 1913. So basically a year later. He was succeeded by Harold Sanderson. As he was resigning, he made a final promise that all White Star Line and IMM vessels would be equipped with enough lifeboats for all passengers on board. His health declined drastically, and he was later diagnosed with diabetes, resulting in the amputation of his right leg below the knee.
Oh, wow.
On October 14th, 1937, he suffered a massive stroke which rendered him unconscious, and he passed away 3 days later on October 17th, 1937, aged 74.
Wow, what a way to go.
That's the end of Baby Ismay.
Baby Ismay died at 74.
He did. Baby Ismay died at 74. All right, moving swiftly on to our second-class passengers. Of the LaRoche family, one of the families I mentioned earlier, it was the Haitian man traveling with his pregnant wife and 2 children that were transferred from a separate ship. Only Mr. Joseph Philippe LaRoche perished, so only the father perished. His wife, Juliette LaRoche, and their 2 daughters both survived. Now, I'm sure this has been burning in the back of your head since last we spoke about this. How about the man that kidnapped his 2 sons?
Yes! What the fuck?
So, Mr. Mitchell Nafratil and his kidnapped sons. During the collision, there was a locked armed circle around the lifeboat that they were trying to board that only allowed women and children through. So basically, there was a bunch of men basically just holding arms, stopping any men from trying to get on board.
Okay.
So Mitchell tried. He tried to get both him and his sons on board, but they would not let him through.
He's like, I am their mom. Let me on.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So Mitchell passed his 2 sons through, saving their lives. So he actually decided he was going to part with his sons, and he got them on board a lifeboat.
Wow. Thank God that he did the right thing for them.
Yeah, so Mitchell Jr. recalled the last thing his father told him. My child, when your mother comes for you, as she surely will, tell her that I loved her dearly, and still do. Tell her I expected her to follow us, so that we might all live happily together in peace and freedom of the new world. Mitchell Sr. perished in the sinking, but his body was recovered with a pocketbook, a gold watch, a pipe, coins, keys, and a loaded revolver.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know about that guy. Don't trust him.
Yeah. I don't know about that guy. So the boys were sheltered in New York by another survivor called Margaret Hayes, and they were dubbed the Titanic Orphans.
That's really sad.
It's really sad. Their story was published in a variety of newspapers, which eventually made their way to Marcel, their mother,
Oh my gosh.
who immediately recognized the boys. So she booked on the next boat over, and she was swiftly reunited with them. So the Titanic orphans got back to their mom, and they all went back to France.
Thank gosh. God, what a story though.
Yeah, like that's when I read that one, I was like, whoa, there's a crime within a crime. That was a bit of a weird one. And I'm like, if the Titanic hadn't sunk, I do wonder what would have happened to those boys.
Right? And like what a way, like just what a kidnapped story of like this mom like loses her kids and she's just like, oh my gosh, what happened to my kids? I wonder where they're at. I wonder if I'll ever see them again. And then this Titanic thing happens and she's just like, who cares? My kids. And then she's like, wait, my kids were on the Titanic. Huh?
Yeah.
Like
yeah, just that sheer of like, oh, I heard about this awful tragedy, but I can't really focus on it right now because I'm looking for my kids. Hey, those are my kids.
Literally.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So I'm glad that they eventually were reunited with their mom, and I have mixed feelings about the father, but rest in peace, I guess.
Yeah.
So the Vanderbilt, they were not on board, but they had sent their servant in their stead to watch their bags.
Yeah.
The servant unfortunately did not make it. Weirdly enough, George Vanderbilt himself passed away 2 years later from complications due to an appendectomy. Appendectomy. I can't say that word. Appendectomy.
Appendectomy?
Appendectomy. That's the word. An appendectomy. Appendectomy? Appendectomy.
Got you, babe.
Don't be... Thanks, babe. So Vanderbilt himself passed away 2 years later from complications following an appendectomy. Whew. Only took me 8 tries.
Got it. No worries.
Thanks.
You just edit out the
right.
first 7, you know.
Yeah, I always do. Unless they're funny, in which case I keep them.
There you go.
We do it for the comedy, baby. Third class.
Yes.
The Goodwin family. So this was I believe the youngest passengers on board.
Okay.
Like most large third-class families, the Goodwins did not make it, and none of them did. So the entire family was lost in the tragedy, and most of their bodies were not recovered. Only the body of baby Sidney Goodwin, who was 2 years old at the time, were recovered, and he was not identified for a long, long time.
That's so sad.
Oh, this was not the youngest family. This was one of the families that got transferred.
Oh.
Because they had the no kid policy.
Oh.
The oldest passenger on board, Mr. Johann Svensson, unfortunately perished as well, as did his son.
Gosh.
Of our 2 youngest passengers, Milvina Dean did make it, along with her mother and brother, but her father unfortunately did not make it. Baby Gilbert Danbaum and his parents perished as well.
That's so sad.
So you can kind of assume there were third class, not many people made it. They were very, very lucky if they did. So of the crew, of the 908 crew members on board, only 212 crew members survived.
Gosh.
696 crew members perished. 693 male crew members perished, and 3 female crew members perished. Of the 8 officers on board, 4 survived: the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th officer. Captain Commander Edward John Smith, the Chief Officer Lieutenant Henry Tinklewild, and First Officer Lieutenant William McMaster Murdoch, and the 6th Officer James Paul Moody all perished. All members of the Guarantee Group perished in the collision, including Thomas Andrews. A majority of the deck crew survived, but most of the engineering crew passed. The 2 youngest crew members, Frederick William Hopkins and William Albert Watson, the 14-year-olds who were on board, both perished.
Jeez.
Overall, 76% of crew didn't make it, leaving it with a higher death rate than third class.
That's so sad. Is that expected on cruise ships with crew? I feel like it's not.
I mean, crew is expected to be, like in case of an emergency, crew is not really expected to be the priority. That's still kind of a philosophy. I mean, thankfully, our distribution of crew to saving people is much higher. So I was a safety leader, which meant I would have been in charge of a lifeboat if we had collided with anything. I would have had a second, basically a vice leader, who would have been helping me, and they would have manned the back of the boat, but I would have been the leader. We also would have had people who were actually manned the lifeboats that were operating it. So we would have maybe 4 crew members on board a lifeboat. I had, I believe, 150 passengers on my lifeboat.
Wow. That's a big lifeboat.
So out of 150 passengers, we would have saved 4 crew members. And then I believe that there were specific lifeboats intended for crew members that weren't safety leaders.
Gotcha.
But yeah, they were not the priority, and I believe they were the smaller of the lifeboats.
That's crazy.
So April 22nd, 1914, 2 years after the tragedy. The Titanic Engineers Memorial was unveiled in Southampton to 100,000 onlookers, approximately the same number who had come out to the launch ceremony.
Wow.
Do you remember the 2 Olympic survivors I mentioned? Stewardess Violet Jessup and stoker Arthur John Priest? Both of them survived. So they had survived both the Olympic and the Titanic.
I would never get on another boat again. I'm not pushing it a third try.
Well, here's the creepy history for you. Both of them stayed with the White Star Line and were later stationed on the Olympic and Titanic's younger sister, the Britannic. So they were on all 3 ships.
No.
Yeah. So from the wreckage, only 333 bodies were recovered, which is about 1 in 5 victims.
Wow.
Some bodies were trapped in the wreckage and were dragged below. Other bodies were pulled out by currents and distributed into the Atlantic. By June of 1912, the Titanic lifebelts and jackets were starting to disintegrate, meaning that any bodies that were floating out to sea were now sinking into the depths below. The last body recovered was a steward named James Grady, labeled body 330.
Jeez.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good place to end our bummer episode, now that all of the bummer history is out of the way.
Yeah, definitely. God, that was a heavy episode getting through.
Yeah, this was probably the toughest one. Well done, guys. You made it to the end. This is a tough episode. This is some tough history, but we're through it. All of the bummer history is done. Now we're kind of in the post context, and we're getting ready for our conspiracy theories. So, but well on you. Please, if you're listening to, if all of the episodes are released and you're listening to these in order, take a break now. This is my please. Don't listen to part 5 if it's out already. Take a breather, take a break, go listen to Taily Poe, go listen to Muffin Man, go listen to one of the fluffier episodes, or please go watch a TV show. Decompress, de-stress, put yourself back into a proper mental capacity. Just reset, recharge, because it's a lot. This is heavy. It's a tough thing to stay in for a long time.
It is, yeah. And it's okay to dip into this world for a little bit, because that's how we pay it proper respects, is by coming to this and really, putting ourselves in these moments and trying to appreciate, just what they were, because it is a horrible thing that people went through. And, we want to be able to pay the proper respects to that. And I believe that, we do our best job of trying to do that. But like you said, it is just so heavy, and it's not healthy to stay in this for too long. So please just do yourself a favor, do us all a favor. Just take it in a step at a time, a little dosage here and there, but don't stay in it for too long.
100%. Yeah. Like go touch some grass.
Yeah.
Get out of the water. Go touch some grass.
Yeah, exactly.
And Alana, thank you. Thank you for sitting down with me and getting through that, because that was not an easy recording, but you did it. You did it like a champ, ma'am. Ma'am,
we did it together. And I just, wow. Like truly, there's so much that the Titanic goes down. That happens. You know that a lot of people are lost in it, but you just don't fully grasp, like, even going through each individual, like, passenger on some of these people, it's like, wow, just so many different lives were affected in so many different ways. So many people from so many different walks of life that were just all in this, moment of catastrophe together, struggling for their lives. It doesn't matter where you were from that day, where you were going. It just matters that you were on this boat in this moment, in the dark, in that cold, and you were just trying to make it.
Yeah, I do wish that I could spend some time and talk about everyone's stories, but remember, there were 2,223 people on board, and I think if we had tackled every single story, we'd still be here. And I think, if you want to learn about each individual story, you absolutely can. There's information on every single person on board that boat. They have fascinating stories. There are amazing survivor tales. There are awful, tragic victim stories. Like, if you are interested in this sort of stuff, 100% feel free to reach out. A lot of my sources are down below. Feel free to go do some digging, but don't stay in the world too long. Please don't stay in this world for 2,223 people, because it's heavy. That's why I only touched about like 20 people. Just because I think that was a good number to just give you an awareness of what things were like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, but the research is appreciated, ma'am. And just thank you for taking on this journey, you know?
Yeah, I would love to say it's my pleasure, but this one was it was a thing that I did.
Yeah.
I did that.
It was necessary context for sure. I know that this next episode of us actually getting into some speculations now that the whole foundation and the whole pre-context is officially laid. I'm very interested to see where we go from here.
Yeah, I think don't get too hopeful that we're going to hit the conspiracy theories next episode. We might do it, but we've got a little bit more context to cover before we get into the nitty-gritty of the conspiracy theories. But so
Gotcha.
Sorry, guys, I've got at least another 2 episodes to go. I'm finger gunning. You can't see, but I'm finger gunning.
We'll keep on chugging along then.
Yes.
But until then,
yeah.
Where can people find us?
They can find us on Instagram and YouTube at Spookery Podcast. Alana, where can they get a hold of us?
If you want to send us any messages at all, please make sure they're nice. You can send them to our Gmail at spookerypodcast@gmail.com.
You sure can. You can leave us a lovely 5-star review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We don't talk about that nearly enough.
No, please do. Please leave that beautiful, beautiful 5-star review. We would greatly appreciate it. Helps other listeners like you find the podcast.
Indeed. And I think all of us need to go lie down after this. So everybody, Thank you so much for bearing with me. This was a tough one, but we did it. I will see you in the next one, but please give it some time. Let it digest for a bit.
Yes.
Until next time, everybody.
Stay spooky.
Goodbye.
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 I got excited. Where am I? Where's my line?
She lost her place in the play.
I lost my place. I was so impassioned by Cunard and the Lusitania that I just lost my place in the script. It's all downhill. We've only just started. We're only 6 minutes into the recording. I don't understand how I've lost my place this quickly.
It's all Cunard's fault.
It's all
just
Cunard.
Cunard. Oh my gosh.